Hello, and welcome to True Horrors with Meg and Rachel. Every week we discuss a horror film and the true stories that inspired, influenced, or bear striking resemblance to them. Be warned for spoilers and adult themes. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Meg.
This is True Horrors.
Hey guys, what's up?
Oh, that was much better. Nice job.
Yeah, we're really working on starting these podcasts like people who know what they're doing with their lives as opposed to reality.
Or people who know how to talk to other humans, which I've established in my life I do not.
I just, something a little bit tighter. Damn it, you're tiny again. So this was a problem from a couple of weeks ago where for some reason I couldn't get Skype to make Rachel the whole screen. And so she's like very small, like as big as the palm of my hand. And then I fixed it and now it's happening again. I got it.
Perfect.
We're so happy you could be here with us today and listening to us talk about Halloween, and then something that Rachel will tell you something about that inspired Halloween. It's the formula of the show.
Yeah.
Except it's not Halloween every time.
Oh man, there are so many movies. We could get a lot out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, this is fun because it's my favorite horror franchise. I don't think it's quite as narratively tight as Scream, and it does get a little campy toward the end, but not so much that it's like you're not watching a horror movie anymore. Again, aside from the Rob Zombie ones that I won't even watch, and I haven't seen the newest one, but every other one I really like. I really like this franchise.
The newest one is incredible. And actually watching this, it was really fun in my head to just erase all of them except the one, because it does sort of kick out the rest of them, like create like an alternate universe canon, which I really like because I was never a fan of the whole Laurie is his sister thing.
Yeah. Which that's the other thing that's got to be said is you have to just accept that there are 3 different timelines in this franchise. And that's fine. I don't care. I don't care about that.
Well, and also it doesn't really hurt. None of it really goes back and hurts the first one.
Right.
Except I think it's scarier if they're not related.
Yes. Because it's just like, this was the first house where I could get into and start killing people. But the reason I like this franchise... Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something on that?
No, do it.
The reason I like this franchise so much is that they don't ever move away from what makes Michael Myers so scary, which is he doesn't talk and he just wants to murder people. We don't know why. It doesn't matter. He's not going to tell you. He just wants to murder people, and it's terrifying.
So true. So true. I was just going to say that I couldn't remember in this movie why he picks them, and then watching it, I was like, oh, that's why. Because he's triggered by Laurie and the little boy, whose name I can't remember right now. Tommy, because they go to he's broke into his old house for obvious reasons. And then he sees them through the door, and they're a teenage girl and a little boy, just like him and his sister. And I'm like, oh, that's why it triggers him. And I'm like, that's all I need to know. Like, that makes total sense to me that then he stalks them. Like, that they triggered something in him.
Or even outside of that, it's just the first person he saw. And I was like, all right, that one. And then also, like, I mean, I guess he doesn't try to get into a lot of other houses, but he really just waits for that opportunity to arise. Like, he doesn't really try super hard to, I mean, because it's the 70s and everyone leaves their doors unlocked and their windows open. And again, no screens. So he's just, like, able to start murdering. Like, he doesn't start with her. He starts with her friends because he's just able to.
Yes.
Like, he just wants to murder people.
Yes.
Although I did write down, you would think that murder is his true passion. So you would think it's murdering, but it's actually lurking and watching, followed closely by disappearing at the exact right moment.
Okay.
Murder is a hard 3.
I wrote that down so many times. First of all, I can't, they're like, Loomis is like, there's nothing there. And I'm like, false. He clearly has a flair for the dramatic.
Yes.
He is such a showman. I will, like, why did he feel the need to steal his sister's tombstone, carry that heavy stone and then lay the bodies out like that. I'm like, on some, like, there's just this two conflicting ideas that he's just like a shark that has to murder as far as swim, or that in some way there's some kind of plan in his head, because he doesn't just murder them. He steals his sister's tombstone and sets it up. He continually stalks them and then has enough frame of mind to disappear. Like, so that to me, and that doesn't make it less scary to me. It makes it more scary. But I also just like, maybe it's because Scream parodies it a little bit, but the idea that you can like see him in the distance, they do that a lot just to do layers of meta. But in the second Scream, when they go in the beginning to see the movie Stab, which is based on the first movie, the ghost face does that. Just like you see them in the distance as the audience, and the fact that like he's there and then he walks quickly enough away that when they check behind the bush, he's not there. He's at least a little bit present, like a predator.
Well, and the thing is, it has to be a conscious choice not to speak for 15 years. Like, we know he can, because up until he murdered his sister, it seems like, you know, there were no warning signs. Or, I mean, I guess we don't really know. But as far as we know. So he just made a conscious choice to never speak again. And that's the worst thing. That's so terrifying.
I mean, we always talk about it, but what makes a great horror movie is the music. Like, what separates the good from, like, the iconic. Like, that score. And the fact that it's used in the same way it is for Jaws, like his point of view, is incredible, because it just brings about a fear and a tension in your audience, even when something's not about to happen. You just know he's there. But I do want to talk about the fact that the first shot of this movie is his point of view walking up to the house, which makes sense because they're trying to be like, oh, this murderer's coming. And then it's like, oh my God, it's actually the child. Why was he out there?
I don't know. And where were his parents? Because he doesn't seem to have a trick-or-treat bag. And I guess his sister was supposed to be watching him because she says something about him being around. But, like, so he just walked out the door, like,
for a grand entrance. Like, it's not even like his first point of view shot is him lurking in the window, and then you can kind of be like, okay, he's creeping. He's walking up to the house, and his parents weren't there. She was babysitting, because that's the whole thing. So I'm like, what?
Is he mad that she wouldn't take him trick-or-treating? Is that what this is all about? I get it.
All about. It's from the... Also,
because he is dressed in a costume.
Maybe he just wears that all the time.
Oh, God. Nightmares.
You know, some kids, like, they dress as, like, little cowboys or something, and then they just, like, won't take their cowboy costume off. That's him, but with that scary, terrifying outfit.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I know we've started a bit out of order, but I've got two things right from the beginning. First of all, I know she has bigger problems because she's about to be murdered, but that guy was not going to call her.
No. He also, I don't think, was very good because they were finished and he was moving down the stairs by the time, like, in the amount of time it took Michael to get from outside through the kitchen, pick up the knife, and move into the living room. That was maybe 2 minutes. They went upstairs, finished, and he was dressed and down the stairs. I just want to point that out.
Okay, but that's kind of a theme of this movie is inadequate sex, because the couple that gets murdered, the phone rings and he's like, oh, da-da-da. So, like, we can't keep having sex with them. And then they have sex and you see what you think is them being finished having sex, but you watched it the whole time. It was like under a minute. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way that was enjoyable for her. Like, it's sad that she dies anyway, but she's going to die only knowing mediocre sex. Like, that's
you don't know. Maybe she slept with other guys who were decent. Like,
I mean, but I guess I just don't believe you can have decent sex and then go backwards.
I guess that's
like,
fair.
And she seemed pretty like, oh, that was great. And I'm like, honey, is that what sex was like in the 70s? Like, wow.
Kind of like how the marijuana wasn't as strong, the sex wasn't, like, the climaxes weren't as strong.
The other thing from the very beginning is I don't know if it was meant to be freeze frame or else his parents were just standing there staring at him and not. a weird and terrifying thing, and there is blood on the knife.
Mm-hmm.
And his parents are just like, Michael, what up? Like, it's not even like, it's the kind of reaction if your kid was just outside in the dark, as opposed to your kid is outside in the dark, not speaking with a bloody knife. Like, there was just a lot there.
Yeah. But also, I was just thinking, this was in the 60s, 1962, right? So I feel like if you came upon your kid outside in the dark in 1962, you wouldn't think that was weird. Kids just did that.
And held a knife. Maybe he needed to chop some meat. They were
well,
just like,
no,
you know what?
minus the knife.
Okay, last week when we talked about Scream, and you were mad about Sydney using that girl's hairbrush, was that right after she had sex with Billy Loomis?
Yes.
I'm just wondering because when Michael goes up to stab his sister, she's brushing her hair topless after having sex. Is that something that is that just what women do after sex? Just like in like it was just
now
weird to me that I'm like,
brush
is that
my
a
hair.
reference? Is that a reference to something? I'm like, oh, maybe it's a reference to this movie, to the fact that she's brushing her hair right after sex. Or
I
maybe
also just might think it's weird because I don't brush my hair like ever. Like,
oh, I think it's weird too. I mean, I don't like. I think it was weird too. I mean, to use someone else's, but also just like in the time they were doing it, I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe they just need to give her something to do. You know, sitting there, like it's not like she'd be reapplying her makeup or anything.
Yeah.
But I just remember thinking, you thought that was odd in Scream. I thought this was odd. I thought it was odd that she was like singing to herself and brushing her hair.
Yeah, she doesn't seem all that worried that guy is definitely not going to call her. Like, maybe she's just got to distract herself by brushing her hair.
Let's see. What else? I can't decide if Dr. Loomis is super extra or if he is exactly what he should be for the situation. Like when he's driving with that nurse, and I wrote down some of the things he says that if this movie was remade and he had just like me with him all the time, like maybe I'm his assistant, maybe I'm from the state. Here are some things that he said that I would just be like, okay, I get it, but you have to chill. I wrote it down somewhere. Evil has escaped. This isn't a man. He's come home. Calling him it. The devil's eyes. And my personal favorite, death has come to your town.
I was hoping you'd say that because I just kept scripting that the whole time I was watching the movie because I knew it was coming. He is such a bad doctor, though. You can't talk about your patients that way.
He doesn't give a fuck. He does not see him as his patient. He's like, this is like my white whale. Like, I just have to imprison and kill it.
He's such a bad doctor. And I actually just wrote, like, I get why the police are skeptical because the way he talks, would you take that man seriously?
Exactly. That's why I wrote these all down because I was like, you're not helping yourself.
But also credit to the sheriff. He was like, you know what? I think you're crazy, but I'm gonna stake this out. Just in case you're right. I'm not taking that chance.
But that's not all he said. He said all that, and then he ended it with, and if you are right, this is your damn fault.
Yes.
I was like, wow, you're just really hedging your bets. Also, your daughter's dead.
Yep.
But, okay, so for our listeners, in order to understand what's about to happen, you need to know something called riff tracks. Rachel and I watched a lot of riff tracks in college, and the riff tracks for Halloween, which basically riff tracks, it's a group and they watch the movie and they make jokes throughout the whole time. And there are two moments in this movie that Rachel and I probably saw this 7 years ago, maybe more. And we still in our daily like lives might say this. Like we've said these before. The first joke is when she looks out her window and sees him among the sheets and he says,
"Sheets are dry."
Which I could not stop thinking were out there that as much as I know that it's probably not as funny if you haven't seen Rip Tracks,
Right.
I could not bring this up because it's all I could think, and I just kept writing it down when you see it because he's just standing there among the sheets. Like, it's such a weird thing to do.
Is I was looking down and writing something at that moment, and I looked up and he was gone, and I said out loud, "Oh man, I miss sheets are dry." But I didn't go back for it.
I forgot when it happened. And so when she looked out the window and I saw him, I like lost it. Like I thought it was so funny. And the other one jumping a bit ahead when he stabs that boy literally through his body and hangs him and then stands there for like a solid 20 seconds just looking at him. The riff track had him narrating.
Something along the lines of, sometimes you just need to stand back and appreciate your work.
I think that's exactly what it is. I think that's exactly what it is. So sometimes you just need to stand back and appreciate your work. Well done, me. Because that's all I could hear when he was doing it. Because if you ever, next time you watch this movie, I hope you also think about these things. Because
I hope so.
This is a terrifying movie. It's an incredible piece of horror.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he is always just popping up like the worst Jack in the Box in the world and then just like fading out like in dissolved PowerPoint is just, it can be a little hard to take seriously.
Yes.
Because like, it's just like, what are you doing? Like, why are you amongst the sheets? Why are you?
There is one other thing. First of all, I just want to say, when it comes to riff tracks, there are ones that are good, and then there are ones that change the way you watch the movie forever. And you will never not think of the riff tracks when you watch it. This is one of them. But the other thing, and it's actually a series of jokes that I always think about, is the way the lighting changes in every single shot that occurs outside. Like, at one point, it's like, they seem to get out of school at, like, 12:30 in the afternoon. When Laurie's like walking back up to her house, it seems to be like immediately after a freak rainstorm, but only in her yard. All the other sidewalks were dry. Like, that's a running series of jokes in the riff tracks as well.
Yes, because I wrote that down. I forgot that was a joke in the riff tracks, but I wrote that down because she picks her up to go babysit and then it's nighttime.
Yes.
Like, and it was not even look like the sun was going down. No. And then it's just like night. Mm-hmm. Just insane. Like they were just like, I don't know if they were trying to disorient us or if that gives them too much credit. Like,
no, it was a really low budget film. So it was probably just filmed over a series of days. And they're like, we don't have time to like make sure the lighting is the same.
Go.
There is one more. Because they also joke about how Annie is just this unpleasant bitch, and it makes no sense why they are friends with her. She doesn't say a single nice thing the whole movie.
That's so true.
She's the worst.
Oh my God. I really was really digging that very subtle English lesson she got on destiny and fate while he watched her from a window. And I will say that is why, not to harp on this, why I don't like the idea that she is his brother, because she is his sister, because I feel like the first movie did a whole lot to hit over our head that this is just fate, that it's like fate, it's chance that he picks her. Mm-hmm. And whether it's because she was the first person he saw, or if it was because she was the first person he saw and she had that kid with him and it triggered something inside him. I appreciate that and enjoy that a lot more. The idea that it was fate or destiny, but I was also like, I love my lessons on fate I always got in English class.
She gave that lesson like she was reading out of a textbook. And, like, we never see the teacher, so it's not super clear, like, how old she is. So, like, maybe she's just been doing this so long that she just has a script. But, like, I never heard a single teacher talk the way she did.
No. I also want to say he's really lucky it's Halloween. I mean, I understand that he did what he did on Halloween and he's coming back for the anniversary, but not really, because he had the opportunity to escape because they were going to transfer him. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the people who were going to transfer him was like, when it'd be really cool to transfer him. But if it wasn't Halloween, people would be more freaked out by this guy in a mask. Whereas, like, I do think on Halloween you can get away with a lot more stuff like this.
I don't know.
Also, that bed is too small for her.
Yes. I was going to say, I don't know that it's clear that anybody really saw him besides the kid. Because he was mostly in the car. But
oh, that's very true.
Also, as he was driving by with the mask, maybe they're like, hey, it's William Shatner. What's he doing here in Illinois? He looks really pale. Maybe he's sick.
Also, again, this is nitpicky, but they make a point of saying, oh, we're both babysitting these kids. That's just 3 houses down. And then they are aggressively across the street. No one saw that in post. Like, no one was like, let's just take that line out.
They just didn't have the money.
Also, he's only 21, which I guess I always thought he was like in his 40s, and I don't know why.
But he's
only
old.
21 because he's evil.
Yeah.
It's all the evil, as Dr. Loomis would tell. I want to go to school, become a psychiatrist, and then talk like him.
No.
About all my patients.
No.
Or alternatively, not go to school and just start talking like that about everything, even things that are really innocuous. I love how the little boy is like, I saw a man outside, and she's like, there's no one outside. And I'm like, honey, you've been seeing a man outside all day. You're not even a little bit concerned.
I mean, every time she looked, he was gone. But yeah. Well, it seems like she took a nap. Maybe she's like, maybe she forgot about it when she fell asleep.
In her tiny, tiny bed.
In her tiny, tiny bed.
That bed was too small. And then she puts the kids to sleep in his bed. And I'm like, are you mad that those kids have a bigger bed than you?
That's why she needs to babysit. She's saving up to buy a bigger bed.
I'm never over that. That's the joke of this episode now.
I just want to...
I was just going to say, in some ways he is so stealth. Mm-hmm. And in other ways, it's like, what are you doing? Like he just carries Annie's dead body around the front of the house. Uh-huh. Like, no one sees him. That seems to be because no one actually lives on this street with those children.
Which, the thing is weird, because it's established later that the patio doors are open. Like, I don't think they ever got closed. Like, they just came back in from the laundry room and just left the patio doors open all night. Also, they make it seem so easy to break glass in this movie. People are always just smacking glass and breaking it. Like, Michael does it to the car window. Lori does it to the door. Was glass more fragile back in 1978?
It was the glass, it was the marijuana, and it was the sex. Just everything was weaker. Also, murder is wrong, but murdering a guy who made a joke about undressing a child is kind of a gray area for me.
Right. Here's the thing. I sometimes wonder if it was supposed to be Annie and not Lindsay.
Yes.
And they just, again, like it's 3 houses down or maybe across the street. They just were like, eh.
Or it was so low budget they noticed those things but just couldn't.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they thought this was going to become an iconic movie. Yeah. But that makes a lot more sense because I was like, that's such a weird comment.
So
like, that's
weird.
Such a weird out of place comment.
And like his girlfriend is not weirded out by it. She just keeps laughing. Like, it's so weird.
Oh, I was just like, what did I write down here? I wrote down, wow, that did not last long. What am I talking about?
The sex, probably.
Yeah. That is what I'm talking about. Also, is there some kind of shortage on electricity? Why does no one turn a light on ever?
So there was a moment when Lori goes into that house with all the dead bodies, and I kind of looked away for a second, and I was like, did she maybe try to turn on the light and realize that he had cut the power? Because that was my thing. I was like, why don't you just turn on all the lights? 50% of his strategy is just melting into the darkness. If there's no darkness, you're going to see him. Mm-hmm. Like, turn on lights.
Also, for a movie that's famously known for him stabbing people, he chokes a lot of people.
He does.
Like, with his bare hands, he chokes a lot of people, which I did appreciate how long it took him to kill Annie, because it does take a long time to strangle somebody with your bare hands, longer than people think it would take based on movies. Not, like, I know that from
Yeah, that's not advice, by the way.
But I was also going to say, it's not that I know that from personal experience. I know that from school.
Right.
There was something else on this vein. Oh, in the whole idea of, is he actually conscious of what he's doing? A big thing in the column of, yeah, and he's just messing with everyone, is him putting on that ghost costume. Like, why?
Also, why does he put the glasses on the outside? You can put a sheet over your head if you wear glasses.
So that maybe he saw what happened. He'd been watching them for a while. We know that, and was like, she might not get this unless I put the glasses on. It was like, I don't want to take any chances.
Because it's just like, well, I guess it doesn't matter if the glasses get off. He doesn't need them to see. I don't know. It's just weird. It's really weird.
Exactly. And then he's like, okay, not only does he take his sister's headstone and presumably put it in his car, or he presumably takes it back to the house, but either way, he then has to go get the tombstone to bring it to set up this whole thing. And it's like, wow, like, that's a lot of work for a message I don't truly I'm not trying to, like, criticize your art or whatever, but I really don't understand. I don't understand what's happening, Michael.
I don't think we have to be too worried about criticizing the art of killers. Like, that's not art. Don't give him that much credit.
This is his statement piece, Rachel. He's making a statement. It's that he's strong enough to carry a tombstone.
Oh, also going back to how easy it is to break glass. Not from this movie, but from Halloween 2. I've only seen it once, but I specifically remember because it takes place in the hospital. I specifically remember a scene of him just straight up walking through a glass door or a glass window. He does not speed up. He walks at the same pace he walks this whole movie, and the glass just shatters as he touches it.
The glass was just like, nah, it's fine, buddy. We'll just get out of your way. Oh, he also brought the jack-o'-lantern in.
Yes. What the hell?
Like, that's another thing to, like, add to this. He's like, just in case you don't get it's Halloween. Yes. Like, I want them to understand that this has something to do with Halloween. She let go of that knife so many times, Lori.
Yes.
She dropped that knife and walked away from that knife and did not continue stabbing. Like, we said this last week on Scream, but just keep stabbing. I understand that there's some theories and it goes on in the later movies, that he can't be killed. Right. But, like, she doesn't know that.
Right.
Keep stabbing him.
Also, this is why I should learn how to knit rather than crochet. You can't stab someone with a crochet hook. A knitting needle can do some real damage.
I mean, so can a wire hanger.
Yeah. I have plastic hangers. Maybe I should switch.
Or at least get one. It can be your murder hanger.
I have a baseball bat. Maybe I should just stick with it. How many murder weapons do I really need, considering I'm probably not going to be attacked by a serial killer?
I don't know. I mean, do you really want to get close enough to use the baseball bat?
Do you really want to get close enough to use a wire hanger? You got to be closer than that.
Also, I feel like she opened the doors so that he would think she went on the roof,
yes.
and he in no way thinks that.
No, not even for a second does he think that she went outside.
He's just like, bitch, you crazy. Like, I think you're out there? Also, talking about him being a bad doctor, he doesn't even try to talk to Michael.
No.
Because you can't reason with evil. Is that a line from a movie? Did I just say it? Who knows?
I mean, he is in a lot of these movies. He very likely said it at one point.
I want to create a Twitter account, and I'll be Loomis, and I'll just say things like that every day about my lunch. Or I'll just go on to other people's Twitter accounts and just leave warnings about Michael.
Warn every sheriff. Every, official sheriff account.
Also the actors who play sheriffs on TV.
Death has come to your little town, sheriff.
Death has come to your little town, I feel like needs to be something. If that isn't the title of a song or a band, right. It needs to be on a, something really great.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I think if we ever get to a point where we tour,
write a book.
You gotta think that's a copyrighted. Yeah, you gotta think that's a copyrighted phrase. But if it's not, if it's something we're allowed to use, then I would say it's like our tour, and in parentheses, it's death has come to your little town.
Oh man, that'd be so great.
Anything else?
I just wrote down in all caps, you need some fucking evidence, and I don't really know what I was talking about. I mean,
there's no evidence of anything ever in this.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm just because Loomis is so dramatic, and I'm like, the reason the sheriff doesn't believe you is because you need some evidence. But it's in caps, so I was clearly upset. Or loud. It's hard to tell.
Can we talk about how he is talking to that one guy like, hey, you let him escape, and that one guy's like, you didn't tell us how dangerous he was, and I'm like, I do not believe that.
Yeah, no,
for a second.
He immediately comes back with, I told everyone.
And I'm like, I believe him. I'm like, dude, you clearly, whatever mistake you made, you can't say it's because he didn't warn you. He's warning you just fine.
He specifically said he spent the last 7 years trying to keep him locked up.
I'm honestly more interested in the 6 years he spent trying to talk to this child that wouldn't speak to him.
You'd have to think it would be like, you're going to try to think of things that interest him, and it's the 60s, so I don't know what children were interested in the 60s.
The Beatles?
The Beatles, maybe. I can't think of any TV shows, but maybe, I don't know, lead paint. Talk to him about lead paint.
The Kennedys.
The Kennedys. You know how kids are about the Kennedys. Ooh, it was 62, so at the beginning, I bet when Kennedy was shot, I'd be like, hey, could you believe Kennedy got shot? That would get a 7-year-old talking, right? And then, 68, when Robert Kennedy was shot, he could have tried again.
We really feel like Michael had some political meanings here, that he'd be really interested in current events. Okay, what about stuff he's probably more interested? Like, hey, it's Halloween again. If I give you, was this all about candy? I brought you candy.
If I let you out right now, what would you do? Oh, man.
Just staring at a wall.
Bring him a
not
clown costume. He loves those.
Bring him a clown. How about a knife? He loves those.
Oh, man.
Okay. Final thoughts? Final movie thoughts?
Nope. Oh, just that red cars with red interiors need to make a comeback. Great. It was a great car.
Oh, thank you. You've just reminded me of my final thought.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I wrote down when Michael steals the car. It's weird how well he drives, considering he's never driven. And then it gets brought up that he can't drive, and Loomis is like, he can. Maybe one of your bullshit people taught him. And then throughout the rest, he drives really well. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that when we were talking, I think before we taped the last episode, about you getting your license and having to learn how. And I was like, or maybe you don't, because Michael spent his whole life in an institution and he was like obeying traffic signals. Like, where did he... Like, that's what I love about this movie. I love the things they never even try to explain. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no explanation as to how he can drive so well. Or the fact that Loomis just stumbles upon his first crime scene. Mm-hmm. He's just, like, stopping at the payphone, and then he's like, what's going on over here?
Yep.
Those are my final thoughts.
Excellent.
Would you survive? 10 being you would survive, 1 being you would not survive.
Well, like I said, 50% of his strategy is melting into darkness, so I would definitely turn on lights. And I think that would help a lot, and I would not stop stabbing. So, it's hard.
This is 17-year-old you? This is 17-year-old
Yeah, 17-year-old me was ready to go. It's just hard because, like, this is the movie that launched all the tropes, so it's like it's so easy to pick apart. It's almost not fair.
I'm less on the tropes of her dropping the knife and stuff, and more on the things like, what is time in this movie?
Yes. Also, I feel like yeah, I feel, because the body count's really low. And if you have any, like, awareness of your surroundings, then you're pretty good to go. Because it's just like he surprises a lot of people. Or he pretends to be your boyfriend doing something really weird and you don't think it's weird. Don't turn your back on him. Like, that's a lot of it. It's like, well, I guess he was in the back of her car.
But she didn't realize she went in to get the keys and then the door was unlocked. Yeah. And she didn't realize till it was too late.
Oh, stresses me out so much.
Yeah, I think I'd probably survive just because I think as far as people who are killed in this movie, like, I just wouldn't have been doing the things they were doing in this movie, which I think, like, there are other movies with higher body counts where it's like, oh, you were just around.
Right.
And Lori was smart, but she wasn't so smart that I'm like, oh my God, like, I would never have thought of those things. Like, a lot of it was very keen survival instincts. But she also makes mistakes. So I think that's why she's such a beloved heroine, is because she does the things, but she also it's different because she has 2 children to protect.
Yes.
So I would hope that at least this movie's taught us not to turn your back, even if you think they're dead, because that's just a bad idea.
It's always a bad idea.
Always a bad idea. But I would say if you have not seen the 2018 movie, to go see it. It's so good, and it's so good as a continuation of this narrative. And it's just really, really a fun movie. I saw it in theaters.
Some coworkers and I had discussed seeing it in theaters, and then it just fell apart. We talked about it once, and then it was never seen or heard from again. So it just didn't happen.
And my other final thought is I like the fact that the movie ends at kind of what would have been the calm before the storm. Like, no one really knows what has happened yet.
Right.
I enjoy that as an ending, as opposed to an ending where it's like, where all the police are there.
That's real.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Rachie, tell me a story.
Okay.
I'm in story mode.
So, I have a prologue, which is that when I first picked this, I kind of wanted to do the actual famous babysitter murder of Janet Christman. But then I decided I wanted to save that for something that was, like, straight up based on that. Someday I'll do When a Stranger Calls, and that's straight up based on that. So I wanted to save it. And then I saw something about this dude named Stanley Stiers that people claim this movie is based on. Stanley Stiers did not exist, as far as I can tell. So what I ended up going with was the story of Andre Rand, who was also known as Cropsey. And the weird thing is, outside of that documentary, Cropsey, it is really hard to find information about his crimes. So this is mostly pieced together from New York Times articles and the local, like, Staten Island, I'm assuming TV affiliate. So there are going to be tons of links because that's all I can find. I don't know if, like, I don't know what it is. So he has a lot of aliases, but I think that's his, like, current legal name. He was born in 1943. I'm not really going to get into it. From 1966 to 1968, he was working as a physical therapy aide at Willowbrook. You know, the place I talked about a few episodes ago. Now, I'm not going to say he committed any crimes while he worked there because that would be a crime. That would be slander. But we know what happened at Willowbrook. And we know that there were good workers and we know that there were not good workers.
You're thinking he was probably not a good worker?
I'm thinking he was probably not a good worker. And let me explain to you why in chronological order. So in chronological order, I mean, I'm going to give you a list of crimes that he either pled guilty to, was convicted of, or arrested for. 1969, kidnapped and attempted to rape a 9-year-old girl. Either a police officer drove by and interrupted him, or eyewitnesses saw them with her. Again, really pieced together. He ended up pleading guilty to this and was sentenced to 16 months. Because that's a good amount of time to rehabilitate a child rapist, is 16 months, right? That's all it takes?
Yikes.
Yeah, for real. He was paroled in 1972, and he was arrested for, like, a lot of burglary and larceny and stuff and never convicted, just kind of throughout all of this. But also, in July of 1972, I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these names, and that's a bummer, because I couldn't find any videos. But I'm going to say Alice Pereira. She was 5 years old. She went missing. He was questioned about it, but they didn't have any evidence. So nothing happened. In 1979, he was accused of raping a 15-year-old and some other woman whose age was not listed for some reason. I don't know. But they declined to press charges, as often happens. Then, on July 15th, 1981, little 7-year-old Holly Ann Hughes goes missing. And eyewitnesses say they saw a green Volkswagen in the area, which is the car that he drove. Again, that's not enough evidence. Later, and actually, I don't know about this one so much, because the source I use is not quite as reputable, but I also have that he attempted to rape a 9-year-old in 1981. He literally offered her candy. He was trying to, like, coax her into a car with candy, and she was like, no, and ran away. And when he was trying to find her, they caught him. So good for her, for knowing not to accept candy from strangers in 1981. January 1983, this is his, like, I think this one is his most bizarre crime. He was working as a school bus driver, and he went to the local YMCA and abducted 11 children and took them to New Jersey. And, like, they watched the planes at the airport. He gave them White Castle. And then he brought them back 5 hours later. And they were like, you can't do that. So they arrested him for unlawful imprisonment and sentenced him to 10 months in jail.
That's like a little bit over a month a child.
Yep. It's also like 1 month longer than it takes to carry a child term. So I don't know when he got paroled for this, because another crime that he was picked up for happened in August of that year. So I don't know when he got out. I don't know where this lines up. And I legit have no idea how to pronounce this little angel's name. So I'm going to spell it for you, which is TIAALES. H-E-A-S-E. How do you think you would pronounce that?
Say it again.
Tiahease.
I have no idea.
I'm going to call her Tia.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was her nickname. Jackson. She was 10 years old. And at this point, he was known to like live in camp in a nearby cemetery because that's what normal people do. And her mother reported seeing a man who kind of like fit his description, just kind of like lurking in a van in the area. But again, that's not enough. He was questioned for it, but they didn't have any evidence. And then this one I didn't find nearly as much information about. In June, I used a number for this one, so I had to do some quick math as to which month was the 6th one. June of 1984. I don't know if... Man, I can't even read my own writing. It's Henry Gafforia. I don't know if he disappeared or was murdered or what. He was 22 years old, and his name just kind of gets thrown into these articles. And that is literally all I have about him. Maybe a completely unrelated thing. He might be the one who also worked at Willowbrook, because I know that people have thrown out that maybe he murdered a couple people who worked at Willowbrook. But I literally have no idea who that is. These articles wouldn't tell me. But the big one is July 9th, 1987. Jennifer Schweiger was 12 years old. She went missing. And there was like just a really intense search for her. So, man, why don't I know months lately? About a month later, they arrested him. He was living on the Willowbrook grounds, just like a normal person, because Willowbrook closed that year. So he was living in the abandoned site of our shame.
Primo real estate.
Yeah, for real. Witnesses had placed him with her, and about a week later, they found Jennifer's body, which I just realized is a movie, and I shouldn't have phrased it that way, but I can't go back now. It's just like earlier. Can't go back. He was ultimately arrested and convicted of kidnapping her. They didn't have enough evidence to convict him of murder. And then in 2004, they were able to convict him of kidnapping Holly Ann Hughes. Again, not enough evidence to convict him of murder, but he's, 25 life sentences he's serving? He's not getting out.
Okay.
So,
why do you call him Cropsey?
So there's an urban legend in, I don't know if it's just New York or just somewhere around there, that Cropsey was like an escaped patient from, a psychiatric institute, and he lived either, depending on like when they tell, because it's an urban legend, there's a lot of variation depending on when the story is told. He either lives in the abandoned Willowbrook grounds or the abandoned grounds of Seaview. Why don't I have it written over here? The Seaview Hospital, which was a tuberculosis ward. So living on an abandoned hospital campus is a common theme. And he actually did that. So again, not an escaped patient the way Michael Myers was, but he has connections to it. Lived there, was homeless, just kind of victims of opportunity. And then the other thing, we'll have to link to an Oxygen article that gave me the idea to use this one, rather than Janet Christman. Because they were talking about how, Michael Myers has that, he's the boogeyman. And this guy he's Cropsey. So he's also got his, weird supernatural legend surrounding him. So, yeah. I could not figure out how to present this because the information was so sparse. And I was like, just going to do a timeline.
Well, it also fits in more with our, we talk about that these stories are either inspirations or bear a striking resemblance. This more falls in the striking resemblance because he was arrested finally and put into jail after this movie had come out. But it does hold that idea of oh, Michael Myers, like, he was this supernatural being that, like, he was an actual man who was ascribed the personality of the boogeyman.
Right.
And the same with this guy, that, like, what came first?
There was a really great thing that I came across. There was a man who was put into a psychiatric institute for stabbing his sister to death, who did escape twice. But he was picked up both times without having committed any further crimes. And that was literally all I could find about him. And that was going to take 5 minutes to tell. I was really hoping to find more information because that was crazy. But
that is crazy. It's interesting how places like Willowbrook really become a center of these kinds of acts and this kind of evil. So this isn't, we still
haven't figured it out.
What?
Oh, we still haven't figured out how to end this. Oh, first of all, I think this dude is way worse because he attacked children.
Yeah, I'd give you that.
And way more of them.
Way more prolific than Michael Myers.
Also, these other two girls who disappeared, their bodies have never been found. So, like, every now and again, they'll print articles, be like, hey, by the way, if you have any information. And that's just a bummer.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out, guys, a way to end these. This isn't such a bummer. I would ask for your, if you guys had any ideas, but as I've said before, we tape these well in advance.
Yep.
So hopefully by the time you're hearing this, we've already figured something out. But we will figure out something. In the meantime, stay safe, be vigilant, don't keep stabbing, keep running, trust your instincts.
Don't let someone pressure you into sex.
And
We're going to have to start writing these down.
I think it's funnier that we don't. And don't worry about seeming like a bitch.
Yep.
Just do it.
Just do it.
All right, we will see you guys next time where the movie will be The Birds.
Oh, man, I've never seen that one.
Oh, my gosh. It's such a time. It's such a time to be alive.
I'm excited.
All right, see you guys soon. Stay safe.
Bye.